Alassane Ouattara delivers Côte d'Ivoire to the French army, the ultimate betrayal. A French military cargo Antonov has landed on the GATL tarmac. On Sunday, February 2, 2025, while the people of the Sahel celebrated their regained sovereignty by expelling the French army from their lands, a shameful spectacle of submission unfolded before our eyes, in the complicit silence of Alassane Ouattara's regime. At 4 a.m. that day, in the shadows and without any official announcement, a French military cargo plane, Antonov, discreetly landed on the tarmac of the GATL, Air Transport and Logistics Group, in Abidjan, unloading 70 French legionnaires from Chad. Leading this detachment, a certain Commander Bertrand Jean Olivier, deployed on a mission with the direct approval of the old despot himself. But today's opportunity is extraordinary, it is unique and historic. It is, in fact, an unprecedented event which crystallizes a new vision and a resolute commitment. Better yet, it satisfies one of the most emblematic, legitimate, widespread and deep aspirations of the valiant people of Chad as a whole. It is therefore an exceptional day in the progress of our country which marks the effective end of the French military presence in Chad. A first in 125 years. I weigh and measure my words perfectly. This agreement has never been denounced in its essence and applied on the ground as we have just done. The French military presence in Chad dates back to the 1900s. More than a century and 2 decades of presence in one form or another, during the era of colonization or the era of independence with a signed agreement or even without an agreement. Chad is today learning all the lessons that come from this outdated form of military cooperation. Distinguished guests, dear compatriots, this January 31st, 2025 marks the definitive and complete withdrawal of French forces stationed in Chad. It is, at the very least, a new sunrise in the sky of a Chad that is entirely sovereign and determined to assume its destiny. On November 28, 2024, the 66th anniversary of the proclamation of the Republic of Chad, we broke the military agreement with France. On December 31, 2024, during our message to the nation, we set January 31, 2025 as the deadline for the complete withdrawal of French forces from the entire national territory of Chad. Thanks to God, and in concrete response to a patriotic commitment made to the Chadian people, we are witnessing today, with real, deep and legitimate pride, the effective closure of the last French military base, installed in the heart of our capital for several decades. This withdrawal, completed by the takeoff, from this same base, of the last French military plane yesterday at 3:50 p.m. represents a major step taken in Chad's new march, which aims to rethink its multilateral and military relations with all countries and within various international institutions. While Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger shut down their French military bases to reclaim control over their destinies, the tyrant Ouattara bows once again before Paris. Under his rule, Côte d'Ivoire has become the last enclave of the French army in West Africa, its strategic stronghold, its final refuge after its humiliating expulsion from the Sahel. Let us not forget, in August 2023, Niger banned the French army under popular and military pressure. In January 2024, Burkina Faso terminated its exploitative military agreements with France. And today, where do the ousted French soldiers seek refuge? In Côte d'Ivoire, thanks to Alassane Ouattara. This is no coincidence, these 70 French legionnaires did not arrive in Abidjan by chance. The despot Ouattara is not protecting Côte d'Ivoire, he is protecting French interests. He is not preparing a future for Ivorians, he is executing the Élysées' agenda, even if it means turning our country into a fallback base for foreign forces. Why are these soldiers hastily leaving Chad to seek shelter in Côte d'Ivoire? What secret deal has the tyrant Ouattara signed behind the backs of the Ivorian people? If this deployment is happening in the dead of night, under complete secrecy, it is because the regime knows it is acting against the interests of the people. Is this a disguised military base? Will Côte d'Ivoire become a launch pad for a foreign intervention against the sovereign states of the Sahel? Are we witnessing a new attempt at military recolonization under the pretext of regional stability? The despot Ouattara will never answer these questions because he has never served Ivorians. His only allegiance is to France. What could we do? And how we could try to experiment with this? I asked myself the question when I read the desire or the political decision to significantly reduce our workforce prepositioned overseas. I said to myself, what could we do to illustrate what I just said? Well, here's what we could do. We might be asked. Obviously, this is not an offer, but we could be asked that the whole Port-Bouët, Port, Abidjan Airport and Lomo Nord be transformed into a multinational camp for the operational conditioning of contingents who will participate in operations, whether African contingents or whether European contingents. This is what we could do. And in this area, how do we reduce the visibility of a project like that? It's extremely simple. GIOS did it in Afghanistan. GIOS did this in Mali to ensure the operation and life of a camp. Then, DCI is able to carry out training without specifically wearing French uniforms. Expertise France is capable of doing the rest. And there, we have a project that the Africans would ask us and which would first of all integrate with everything that we are capable of doing on mines, on medical training, on military training, on the delivery of equipment. We can go further. We should go further. This integrator should be able to cover the field from humanitarian to military training, from cultural to the training of people on the Lomo Nord camp, which is a fairly well-known shooting range. That's a bit of what I see as integration capacity. This is a bit like how I see the way in which our country could maintain a form of influence in Africa, while respecting, obviously, and obeying the instructions which have been given to us or which have been given by the political power. Côte d'Ivoire was never meant to be the last stronghold of a crumbling empire. This arrival of French legionnaires is an insult to our sovereignty, a high act of treason orchestrated by a regime that has always been a puppet of the Élysée. The time for blind submission must end. Like our brothers in the Sahel, we must demand the departure of all foreign forces occupying our land. Alassane Ouattara has betrayed the Ivorian people. But he will be held accountable. And he must be reminded of it loud and clear. Chris Yapi does not lie. Find Chris Yapi on his 2 YouTube channels, his Rumble channel, his TikTok, X, Instagram, VK and Threads accounts.